5, 4. Okay, wow, we're alive. Isn't it great to be alive, Manny Menendez?
It is. Great to see you, Jay.
Great to see you. Whoa, wow. I met Manny Menendez, he was just a young fellow doing economic development for the city and county of Honolulu. This was at another time and station, wasn't it?
Yes, some decades ago.
Decades ago. And now what happened? We're calling this show, of course, ThinkTech Asia, and we're going to call it The Hero Returns, Ni Hao Ma, or possibly we can call it Memorable Manny Menendez.
Thank you. That's a good alliteration. Thank you.
MCM Group, okay, which is his company. We'll talk about some of the things he's been doing. So the first thing is China. You really are devoted to China. I mean, more I see you, the more I see the devotion. You are dedicating, your whole life to China, everything. It's all in for China. Why?
Well, I think when I started going to China, my first trip was when China opened the door in 1979, officially. And I just saw this tremendous potential. I mean, China, as the world knows, has have a 5,000-year-old civilization, and I was attracted to that. And I saw the type of activity that they were doing at that time with actually no modern tools, nothing, and they were still churning ahead. So it excited me, and I started manufacturing things and doing deals there starting in 1979, 1980, when I was just a child.
So for us all.
Yes, and I've been always attracted to the Asia-Pacific region. China's been kind of the crown jewel, but I've worked in the area in Malaysia, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Vietnam.
It's so interesting is that my observation, and you probably have a lot more depth in this than I do, but is that there have been over Hawaii's, interest in Asia, modern day interest in Asia, a lot of people here in Hawaii who have done business with Japan and China and Korea and all that, or tried to, as the case may be.
Yes.
But it hasn't been a mainstay of our economy. And you don't see a lot of people who have been doing it and around it and all in on it nearly as much as Manny Menendez. You are one of those follow-through guys. You have stuck to it all these years since 1979. It's a long time already. That's 35 plus years,
Yes.
And you're still doing it. A lot of people who have touched, have touched and gone, and they didn't follow through, and that's the difference.
Well, I mean, it hasn't been a walk in the park.
Oh, I'm sure.
I've learned a lot. There's been challenges.
That's kind of euphemistic.
Yeah.
When you say learned a lot, well, they beat me up here and they beat me up there.
No,
but
but
I stuck with it.
It's when a country that has been was closed for 30 years comes out, and Deng Xiaoping came up with this fantastic concept: one country, two systems.
He was the great man.
He
man.
He was the guy who stuck to the philosophy that economic development, opening up the country to the world, was the right thing to do. And there was a lot of people that doubted that. I mean, in the early days of China, there was two currencies. I couldn't trade, renminbi was not tradable. You had to use foreign exchange certificates. There was a lot of challenges going in. But Deng Xiaoping's philosophy of opening up, the opening of China really has worked. And it has taken, it's interesting, if you look at today's statistics, 600 million people, that's twice the population of the United States, has come out of poverty. Poverty as defined by international standards is I think it's $1.25 per day per person, per capita. In 1980, when I was just really starting to get going in China, the per capita income was 80 cents per person, and the population back then was about 1 billion people. Now, the per capita income in China is about 10,000 US dollars. Now, that is a huge difference, 80 cents to $10,000 in over that 36, 37 year. And it was because of that policy opening up, because economic development and having a GDP grow typically between 8 and 10% per year, every year since that time, has really changed the landscape of the world.
Oh,
Now
the world, not just China, the world.
And they're the second largest economy in the world. But all the economies around China have been lifted up because of China's growth. There's still a lot of problems there, but if you look at the good and the bad, the good far outweigh
You've seen that
some of
from
the
the
challenges.
time of Deng Xiaoping.
See,
But he was one great guy, though. He changed history. One man
yeah,
changed history with that policy.
What policy does? We've had great policies in our country: the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Civil Rights Movement. But in terms of taking a country of over at that time 1 billion people, now 1.3 billion people, and lifting them out of poverty is incredible. There's still 200 million people left in China that are earning less than $1 a day.
Think of what would have happened had he not done what he did.
Yeah,
We'd be having a different conversation entirely.
well, I think
today.
the global economy would be different. The economies around Asia would be different.
Yeah.
It certainly would be a different world.
Yeah.
But China has gone from that time to the second largest economy of the world, and they just had the meetings, Xi Jinping and President Obama and President Xi in Washington, the number 1 and number 2 economy of the world. So
I don't hold Xi Jinping in the same high pedestal that I do with Deng Xiaoping. They're not related. I'm only kidding.
yes,
I mean, Xi Jinping is going backward in many ways, going backward in human rights and rule of law, the way he treats people, the way he does foreign policy, his thing about trying to take over the South China Sea by building islands there. You know, that's not enlightened at all.
is he building an island, or I thought it was rebuilding Waikiki?
That's next.
No,
It's coming soon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, on the geopolitical side, there's a lot of experts. In fact, I saw a picture recently of our Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Forces, Admiral Harris, in Washington, showing a kind of a very nice picture of the airstrips that they're building and so forth. Now, our guys, I'm very confident, can handle those issues. I don't touch on the military stuff. It's not my cup of tea.
That's very smart.
Not my
to
cup of
touch in
tea.
the middle. If you want to do business in China, that's an area to not to touch on.
No, I focus on the business area, but as I said, you know, each leader, Hu Jintao had his own style, Jiang Zemin had his own style, President Yang Shin-kun, those are all the presidents of the last 3 decades have their own style. And Xi Jinping has, in a short time, consolidated his power in an unbelievable way. Every major committee, any major decision goes through him, and he's got 2 advisors. I think one is Mr. Wang, who I know him when he was the party secretary of Hebei. It's one of his right-hand mans, and then there's this chief of staff, Mr. Liu. But everything is going, you know, he's consolidated his power. One good thing he's done, and the vote is still out, whether it's to consolidate his power or to do a good thing, or both, and that is his crackdown on corruption has been remarkable. I mean, he's really cracked down on corruption. And some people say it's to throw his enemies in jail. Other people say it's because he wants to remove corruption.
Which do you
and
think?
I think it's probably a little bit of both, you know.
I'll give you a hypothetical, sort of macroeconomic level of this discussion. You know, they have done remarkably well.
Yes.
And a lot of people have been waiting. I remember Chris McNally, you know him.
Yes, I do.
Saying back in the early 2000s that, you know, there was going to be an overheating.
Yes.
And I suppose in some ways there has been a bit of an overheating,
Yeah.
but not all that serious. Now there's more serious with their stock market and all that. And there are those who feel that China is in a precarious place economically. Now, you see it at a business level. You talk to you rub shoulders, and you know how it is on the ground. But on a macro level, there may be some concern about that.
No,
because if they fold up, if they lose traction, we all do.
No, I think that there's concern. I mean, the economy is different than it was 30 years ago. You know, when you have a $10, $11 billion economy, and you're trying to grow it at, you know, 7 or 8%, it's different than when you have $1 billion economy. So it's a challenge. And there's spots in China that are bright, and there's spots that are not bright. And I think that they have a complex task. I mean, they devalued the currency, which is actually long overdue. They wanted to kind of more float with the market and not just determine it's a fixed currency. So I think that was a welcome. It only actually went down less than 2%, 1.86%.
I heard a piece on NPR today that said that devaluation cost 11 million American jobs. What do you say?
I don't know that, and I don't know how they equate that, but that it was a very small devaluation. Over the last year, the yen in Japan has devalued by 22%, and the euro by 18%. So when you put that into perspective with the Chinese
Not
of
that much.
1.86%, it's not a big story.
Yeah.
But that combined on the tail of a stock market that slid by 40%, then people have concerns.
Yeah.
I think there is sectors in the market, especially with the large state-owned enterprises, which are government-controlled companies, that have a lot of dead wood. And it's hard to just get out and really clean up all those state.
But they need to move forward on that.
They've been doing that actually systematically for the last 25 years, but they can't do it all at once.
Yeah.
I learned one thing in China early on. Everything is done gradually, step by step, not usually all at once. Because once the genie's out of the bottle with 1.3 billion people, it's out of the
It's
bottle.
hard to turn the ship.
So they try to usually try experiments first. If it works, then they enlarge it to a nationwide program.
How about internal security? I heard that, and this is probably news that was depressed or suppressed in China, that there actually have been Muslim terrorist attacks. And that there's an active, the Uyghurs and all that
Yes.
are actually sympathetic to the Muslims in the Middle East, and they're destabilizing force. It's not just that they happen to be there; they're active, and I wonder if China is really in control of these far-reaching provinces and people who do not wish China well within the country.
It's a challenge. I mean, terrorism for the world is a challenge for the world. And when you have people who are radical and will do anything, how do you control that? I mean, you use preventive measures, but it's very difficult to control. It happens every day. We pick up the paper and some bomb goes off somewhere and innocent lives are lost. It's despicable, But in any case, in China, in the western part of China, in Xinjiang, and that part of China is mostly Muslim. Yeah, and there have been conflicts between predominantly the Han Chinese who go into Muslim areas. There is some conflicts. And there have been some terrorist attacks. And the good thing, I'll say the good thing about that, is that the Chinese government publicizes it, that there was an attack. In the past 30 years ago, if there was an
wouldn't have
attack,
said anything.
no, you would have not heard anything. So one of the big ahas of China of today is that there's more and more in the media. When something happens, it's in the media. Maybe not exactly as covered by the New York Times, but it is in the media. It is being discussed, and with the proliferation of the internet and real-time reporting, it's hard to keep any information closed up in any event.
The internet open now these days. I remember my last trip there. They had these dishes on the lanais of those Shanghai apartment buildings.
Yes.
And what were the dishes for? They were trying to bypass the government controls on the internet, so you could see into. They were satellite dishes, I guess, and you could get internet unhampered with those dishes. How is that now today?
The internet is very robust in China. I mean, there's more internet users in China than anywhere else in the world. There's more mobile internet users than anybody else in the world. I think it's somewhere around 500 million, 600 million. Most of the transactions for shopping on the internet is done through your phone, about 80% of them.
So leapfrog on the U.S.
Yeah, no, they have. I mean, they have a thing called Singles Day in China, which is 11/11, November 11th is Singles Day.
Yeah.
And the online transactions through Alibaba on that one day was almost 10, guess how many? $10 billion in sales in one day. In one day. We have, what do we call it, Black Friday or Cyber Monday, but they had in one day $10 billion.
$10 billion. We got to take a moment to let that sink in.
No.
Manny Menendez, MCM Group, meeting memorable Manny Menendez, 4 M's, okay, here on ThinkTech Asia. Ni Hao Ma, the hero returns. And we're talking about Manny's adventures, not only now, but for the past 35 years. We'll be right back.
Aloha, this is Alice V. Hagen from ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show is a bi-weekly show on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. We invite interesting people, entrepreneurs, fascinating leaders who contribute to the social economic well-being of our state. Please tune in to my show, Business Education Spotlight, ThinkTech Hawaii, bi-weekly, Thursday, 3 to 4 p.m. Aloha.
Ted Ralston, folks, host of our show at ThinkTech Hawaii called Where the Road Leads, where we talk about technology influencing the future of Hawaii. Technology, of course, is the art of solving problems. We always bring in interesting and informed guests who can see from different perspectives and different points of view how that future might unfold and how technology can assist us in getting there. So once again, join us 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock on Fridays. Ted Ralston, your host. And please, if you have ideas that you'd like us to address on this show or folks who you think should be on it, let us know.
Bingo, we're back with Manny Menendez of MCM Group. Shall I say visiting Honolulu from China, or are you?
From China, yes.
Okay.
I'm a commuter.
A commuter. I don't know too many people do that.
No, but it's possible now, and I think it's actually a good point to make on the show. Now we have 3 airlines. Hawaiian Airlines, who's flying nonstop to Beijing. You have Air China flying to Beijing, and you have China Eastern flying to Shanghai, nonstop. And so that is changing the landscape of Hawaii for Chinese tourism, but it will change the landscape of Hawaii for Chinese business in Hawaii, Chinese investment in Hawaii, Chinese education in Hawaii, Chinese shopping in Hawaii. So by having direct flights is used. I think the number is a round number, about 200,000 Chinese came or will come this year.
That's way up from the past. Yeah.
It's gradually growing.
They don't hold a candle to the Japanese just yet.
No, the Japanese are 1.5 million.
They're bonded to us, the Japanese.
Yes.
But one thing, Russell, who you must know, Russell, is a lawyer practicing in Hawaii, practicing in Beijing. He complains bitterly we don't have Mandarin signs in the airport, and he tells me that the Chinese complain.
No,
bitterly.
I mean if you go to Beijing or Shanghai, any of the airports, all the signs are in English and Chinese. Yeah. Chinese and English, I should say.
Yeah.
And I think there's some attention to the detail. I think our HTA and our leaders know that. It's just a matter of getting it done. But I think they're aware that there's things that they have to do in order to get signage right, getting more bilingual.
It would be a good idea to do that already. I mean, some people have come to feel that we favor the Japanese because we have many Japanese people in our population.
Right.
And we don't want to offend the Japanese, so we don't do Chinese lettering in the airport. I'm waiting to see. My jury is out on this. I'm going to see what they do. But the thing is, if you have the Mandarin, then you're offering just a little more comfort to the Chinese traveler.
No, it's helpful. Just imagine going to China and not having any signs in English.
Yeah.
You'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
But I think with the technology we have today with LED, where you can change signs easily,
Easy.
you can have Chinese, Japanese, Korean.
Yeah.
Why not have and be inclusive?
You have to get back in government and do something.
Yes, sure. Yeah,
Economic development, what have you.
No, I enjoyed my time as the Director of Economic Development for the City and County of Honolulu.
Yeah.
Did a few other things, but I really enjoyed that.
So let's talk about your trip here just for a minute. And I do want to return to all the adventures in China, but you're here at least for 2 things, maybe more, you have to tell me. One is the program tonight at the Plaza Club.
It's not tonight, but it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow at the Plaza Club.
No, at the Pacific Club.
Pacific Club.
Yep.
Pacific Club. And that's a chaminade program.
That's a shaman
With Brother Bernie and on all the crowd. They'll all be down to see you.
Yeah, it's for the Hogan Entrepreneur Program.
Yeah.
Ed Hogan is a good friend, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, you've been there before. You've spoken there before,
I have.
as I recall.
Yeah, I try to speak at any HPU, Chaminade, UH, anyone who is interested, especially students, interested in Asia, Asia Pacific, and China.
Why is that? Why do you want to talk to
Because students are our future. Our young population are our future, and they need to have a better understanding of the globe internationally. Sometimes, because we're on an island, people don't have the ability to travel so much. So it's good that people who do travel can say, well, here's what's really going on. I remember I had a soccer team. On my soccer team here, I was very involved in soccer here in Hawaii, and everyone on my team was Asian. I had Chinese, Vietnamese. This is my team from a long time ago. And the only two Howie guys on the team was Frank Doyle, which was managing the team, and myself. And I used to go to all the countries of my team, and I used to come back with stories, and eventually they started going. So I like to speak to our young people, because if we work together, if we work with foreign countries, and we have interdependence with those countries, guess what? We usually don't have war. We usually don't kill each other, because we have a mutually beneficial relationship. So I usually say,
Isn't that true? Absolutely true.
I usually say world peace through world trade.
Yes.
When people need each other, they don't kill each
Well,
other.
they know each other. They have familiarity.
Yes.
It's hard to be nasty to somebody you're familiar with.
Absolutely.
You know, that's the principle of APCSS in Waikiki, Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies,
Yes.
which is having their 40th anniversary today.
Wow.
Which we had a video operator down there taking
wonderful.
video footage of that.
I knew, and I still do, a good friend, General Stackpole, Hank
Yeah, what a
Stackpole,
wonderful guy.
who was involved in the early days of
Yeah,
that.
set it
facility.
up.
Set it
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
Yeah, he did a great job.
Yeah, great man, great man. So, and they're changing their name to the Daniel K. Inouye.
Oh,
Isn't everybody?
Yes.
Daniel K. Inouye, Center for Security Studies.
well, Senator Inouye and I were friends. I spent time with him talking about Asia Pacific and China. A great man and a great loss for not only for our state of Hawaii, but for our country.
Yeah.
Really a great man.
But you know, back to those students that you want to talk to, you want to proselytize and make them, you know, I mean, people come, fathers come to me. I don't have the range you do or the experience, but fathers come to me and they say, what shall I tell my son to do when he finishes college? And I tell him, go to China immediately. Have the boy go to China immediately. There's nothing in this world that will be more valuable for him. That's what I tell him.
Yeah, I think that there are so many opportunities in China. Even if you're an entrepreneur, you don't have to be you don't have to be Boeing in order to do business in China. I'm a small operation, just an entrepreneur, a small-time business guy trying to do well, and you can do it. You can do it.
Well, you can learn.
If you know, one of the things, when I first moved to Hawaii, I used to live in Connecticut, moved here 25 years ago, and I had an interview in the Pacific Business News, and they said, what do you see the biggest potential for Hawaii? And I says, there's one export that we don't push as much as we should. And they said, what's the biggest potential? The export of our knowledge.
Familiarity with Asia.
Export of knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, our architects, our law firms, our accounting firms, people in environmental technologies. There's so many areas, high tech, biotech, linking up with the universities in China, taking IP.
We should be doing this, you know, like gangbusters all the time. I remember Belt Collins, remember them? You know,
Sure.
design company.
Jim Bell, a good friend of mine.
Great
former
guys,
chairman.
great company, and they had the chutzpah to go to Asia, you know, offices there,
Sure.
do these enormous contracts,
They did.
and do really good work there, and they were Hawaii company.
And I think they're still doing that. Many of the architectural firms here.
The Freeman firm, I
and-
forget his first name, but there's an architectural firm does the same thing, riding parallel to Belt Collins.
Several of our architect firms are doing very well in China and on projects. But
But we want more. We want all those kids to go there and check it out. be
I think
part
that
of it.
one of the initiatives or one of the outcomes of the meeting with Xi Jinping, President Xi Jinping, and President Obama was more educational exchanges, getting more students from the United States to go to China. They made some commitments. Right now, about 600,000 Chinese students study abroad every year. 600,000.
A lot of them here, a lot of them in this country.
Yeah, of the 600,000, round numbers, around 280,000 Chinese students come every year to study in the U.S. And one of the great initiatives for Governor Ige, who I understand may be taking a trip to China shortly, is to promote all of education for Hawaii. The Chinese usually have each year when they take their national exam, it's called the Gaokao, about 10 million students take the Gaokao. Of the 10 million students that take the national exam, only about half get in, 50%. So the other 50% are looking for a home. And there's no better place, in my view, for many of those Chinese students than to come to Hawaii. One of the reasons for that is not only a great educational system with our private schools like HPU, you have Chaminade, you have UH, and others, but China, many years ago, had a one-child policy. So these families are sending their one child, and they want to send them to a place that's safe, that they don't have to worry. And in the city and county of Honolulu and Hawaii in general, we have the most ethnically diverse population in the United States, most ethnically and culturally diverse population. The number used to be 77% of the population was Asian or Asian Polynesian mix. So when you come to Hawaii from Asia, you already feel like you're at home.
Sure.
You and I are the minority, by the way, Jay.
Sure. But you know what bothers me is that you're talking, over time, the Chinese have learned that the U.S. is a great place for education.
Yes.
They come to the best schools and work hard, very focused in education. They learn to be world-class scholars, right here. I mean, they exceed American graduate students in many fields, in number and in scholarship. But what bothers me is that we don't have an equal participation in going to China. They come here, we don't go there.
But that's one
we
of the-
have the chance, we have the opportunity. For some reason, we don't get off our duffs. Those kids don't go there.
But I think that's one of the initiatives. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton started that, I think it was 10,000 strong or 100,000 strong campaign to get more U.S. Students to go to China. And now that's one of the initiatives from the Obama Xi Jinping meeting. But I think that sometimes we get comfortable in our zone and we don't travel as much. I mean, there's many people who just don't even travel to the mainland.
Do you think that these Chinese students are here because the government incentivized to come here?
No.
Or they just want to come?
No. Most of the students that come now, there's a group called the China Scholarship Council. They send out 10,000 students a year that are supported by the government, around that number.
So that's government money.
Yeah, but the 275,000 students that came this year and last year, those are just full-paying students.
With their parents making loans and all this to make it happen?
Some making loans, but remember in China now they have about 20% of the population is doing very well.
Yeah.
In other words, there's a real middle class in China.
Yeah.
And because there's one child, you have mother, father, aunts,
All
uncles,
focused
grandparents.
on the one child.
Yeah, so there's
They want
enough.
the best for that child.
And that and the thinking is, if you go to a foreign country, in this case the preference is U.S. U.S. is number one for Chinese students. Number two is Australia, I believe, and number three for English-speaking countries. Number three is the U.K. If you go and you go back to China and you have this international experience, if you and I have the same level of proficiency, same level of education, same grades, same everything, but there's one difference. I went to school internationally and you didn't. I probably
get the job.
I probably have a better chance.
Every time, and that's more and more the case.
And that's why
if you speak Mandarin, you get the job in a snap.
And that's why a lot of the parents are sending their kids abroad, because they want to give them the best opportunity for the best paying job.
So you're saying it doesn't require government incentivization
No.
for American kids to go to China?
No.
So what do you do, a paddle like that? What?
No,
How do you
they're-
get them to go?
No, I think we just have to promote it more. I mean,
Yeah.
it needs to be discussed more.
We're going to promote it on this show.
Okay.
But first, we're going to take a break.
Okay, no problem.
That's Manny Menendez, MCM Group, returning a hero from China. The hero returns here on ThinkTech Asia. We'll be right back after this short break.
Hi,
I
aloha. My
think
name
for
is
us-
Chris Leatham, and I host a show called The Economy and You. The show plays every Wednesday at noon, And on my show, I bring on guests who are interested or working in the technology space. And so I'd like you to come and watch the show and learn with me about all the sort of exciting things that we're doing in Hawaii to build and grow our economy ecosystem. So I'd like to say aloha, and I look forward to seeing you on the show. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Hillary Weinberg. I'm the host of The Whole Gamut on ThinkTech Hawaii. See us live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. or on our YouTube channel to hear us talk about world affairs from Hawaii and beyond. See you then.
Aloha, I'm Carlos Juarez, host of Global Connections, and I want to invite you to come join us. We cover a range of global issues. We bring a lot of expert opinion, a lot of issues, whether they're contemporary events happening in the world or maybe looking at things from a more historical perspective. Global issues, very important for us to understand in this globally interconnected world. Join us here on Global Connections.
7, live, we're back, we're live with Manny Menendez, MCM Group, doing business in China for these many years. You know, before I forget, give us a précis about what you're going to be discussing at the Pacific Club tomorrow.
Well, the two events, Pacific Club is tomorrow, and then on October the 16th is PBN is doing, it's called Doing Business with China. It's right here.
I read about that, yes.
Right here in this building at the Plaza Club.
Yeah.
So there's two events. What I'm going to discuss in the first part is where China was, where China is today, and then some prediction of where China is going. And this is in the overall business context.
Yeah.
Then the second part of the presentation is going to be more where are the opportunities for Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then the third part is Q&A, which I like the most because,
sure.
you know.
You're really good at that anyway.
So half the time will be on bringing everyone an update on where China is, like I did last year.
Yeah.
And then most of it I love is Q&A, and I welcome the questions. I tell people if I know, I'll tell you. If I don't know, I'll tell you probably how to get the answer.
Let me cut to the chase and get a real preview here. Where is China going? What is your answer to that going to be?
I think China will continue its path just as it has since the opening period in 1979. They will continue to develop more targeted quality growth rather than overall growth. It's just like when we talk about tourism. Do you want mass tourism or do you want value-added tourism? And I used to give speeches when I was as the economic director for the city. Would you rather have 1,000 people come to Hawaii and spend $100 a day, or 100 people come to Hawaii and spend $1,000 a day? Of course, the latter is better because it's less pressure on the system. The same thing for China. China is looking for GDP growth that are higher level, higher quality GDP growth than just massive growth all over the country. And the country has matured. As I said, when you have a $1 billion, in the beginning, a $1 trillion economy, and it grows by 10%, it means you have to grow the economy by 100 billion. When you have a $10 trillion economy and you grow it by 10%, you have to grow it by $1 trillion. And there's only 12 countries in the world, 12 out of 200, that have a GDP over 1 trillion. 12, that's it. So the focus is on certain targeted areas of growth. And I think that there's some that actually are in line with Hawaii, where Hawaii can provide some areas of Hawaii but can provide knowledge in those areas.
Oh, don't you? But you're speaking on a strictly economic business basis when you say that, and all things being equal, it's hard to disagree with it because of the momentum effect and the vitality of the country and the people and the culture. Easy to see. But there are things that China is doing, experiences that it's having, that could tend to get in the way. For example, there's human rights issues and the way they treat the Falun Gong and the torture in the camps and, God knows what they do behind the barbed wire. Ai Weiwei, a pretty good example of somebody who got a chance to speak about it, but there are a lot of people who never get a chance to speak about it. And then, you're talking about, dissension, disgruntlement by a good percentage of the population. Even now, there are 50,000 protests per annum in China and all that. And then you have these adventures, like I mentioned, with the islands in the South China Sea and all the diplomatic manipulations. And at the same time, a policy of non-alignment where it really counts now. China takes no position in areas of morality, of ethical conduct by global players. It doesn't do that. It's only interested in the buck at the end of the day, and territory. But territory means the buck. So I say to you, I mean, there are things that get in the way. Will those things affect your predictions on China, raising its economy?
Well, there's challenges, but I always like to put it in context with the rest of the world. There's no country that I know of that has a perfect system.
There you go.
Okay? So we have challenges.
Especially including the US of A.
We have challenges. I mean, if you just dial into local issues, like I read the paper, even when I'm in China, I'm reading the local paper online, all the issues with homelessness, okay?
They have that in China? They have homelessness?
They do.
But God, it must be spreading everywhere.
Yeah, but the point is, all countries, all places have issues.
Yeah.
I think, as I said in the beginning, if you look at the macro picture of China, good versus issues, the good far outweigh the issues. But the issues are now because of the momentum of the country, the scale of the country, and that people travel now and have a reference point of other places. You know how many Chinese traveled last year?
Millions and millions.
Take a guess. How many travel outside of China?
20 million.
You're off by a lot. 110 million. 110 million. That's a third of the United States traveling. 1/3.
Why?
That's almost all of Japan traveling.
Why do they go?
Because they have the resources to go. They're traveling outside. And the point is that 110 million Chinese tourists that are traveling outside see a lot. And between the internet, between more openness in the society, and people traveling, they are forcing change in the country. So I don't touch on a lot of those issues. There are a lot of scholars and a lot of smart.
But you should talk about that in your talks that you're giving.
No, there are challenges. Pollution is a challenge for the country. That's, nobody can control that. They're spending billions on trying to clean up the
You still have
environment.
to wear a gas mask in Beijing.
I have mine, but yeah, I do.
Doesn't everybody?
But that's where there's if you think in yin and yang, wherever there's a problem, there's an opportunity. So when you think of pollution and that China uses 70% of its energy as coal, that's why I did the project I showed you before
Well, I was
with
going
clean
to say,
energy.
we have to talk about your projects now. And the one I was going to ask about is, when are you going to get into the gas mask business?
Yeah, well, I have a project doing that right now, actually,
no.
yes. Not gas mask, but, just air filtration.
No kidding.
Yeah, yes.
I really hit on something.
Yeah.
Well, talk about the coal. Let's get an update on the coal.
The factory's been built. We did a joint venture with one of the big state-owned enterprises. They came here to Hawaii, actually, on their way back from our meetings on the mainland. And we're building equipment, transfer the technology, and it's a real basic technology, but it's really important.
This is to clean the coal.
This is you crush the coal, you wash the coal, you dry the coal, and you size the coal. And when you do that, before you burn it, you actually lower carbon emissions and take a lot of the particulate matter out of the air.
Now, is this a technology that's in use, say, in the United States?
It's in use in the United States. Just round numbers, uses around a billion tons of coal a year, U.S. 50%, just under 50% of all the electricity generated in the U.S. comes from coal.
Yeah.
And about 50% of the coal processing plants in the U.S., about 50% clean the coal.
Yeah.
The other 50% do not.
Yeah.
In China, uses 4 billion tons of coal, 4 times more than the U.S. It's 70% of their energy comes from coal, and about 43% of the coal processing plants are washing the coal, and we're adding more and more.
And you're adding more
Equipment.
processing equipment
Yeah,
to
we-
wash the coal, so it's
to those
cleaner.
plants.
Yeah.
So big screens, big centrifuges that actually crush, wash, size.
You know,
the coal.
with all respect to renewable energy and the Chinese, effort to get onto renewable energy, I suggest that coal is going to be mainstream in China for a long time. It's the way it works. You go down the Yangtze River, all you see is coal barges coming down there by the dozens all around you, coal barges. And it's powering the country.
Well, I think they should spend, including our country, more money and focus on technology to use coal and convert it, to coal gasification, put incentives into it, because it's a fuel that's just readily available all over the world. So if we can have some breakthrough on clean coal technology, I'm doing very basic things, washing, drying, cleaning the coal washing plants. But if we can really have some breakthrough on coal technology, it would not only make a big difference in our country and China, because China is the largest user of coal, larger producer of coal, and the largest importer of coal.
Yeah.
So we can make a big difference.
Large in emissions,
Well,
producer
yeah.
of emissions.
Well, as the
too.
Chinese would say, they surpassed the United States. The United States used to be number one, but they surpassed. But on a per capita basis,
okay.
it's very small. So between two countries, that's why China and U.S. has to work together. Going back to why young people need to get on board.
Speaking of working together.
Yes.
Last Saturday, and you have to go too, I took my wife to see The Martian.
Yes.
Okay? And it is a wonderful movie if you like science, if you like space, if you like NASA type things. And Matt Damon is out of this world in this movie. And I heard a story in NPR for the proposition that the movie, except for one thing, which is not consequential, is accurate from a scientific point of view. But in this movie, what really touches you is that when this mission gets in trouble, the Chinese surface, and they reveal that they have a technology that will help the U.S. And the solution to the problem in space on Mars is by virtue of a collaboration between the Chinese and the U.S. And it touches your heart, man. It really does.
Yeah, it's good. I have to say that.
You have to see that.
But going back to your point,
I want to ask you about non-ferrous metals.
I'm going to do that in a second. But carbon emissions.
Yeah.
Two countries represent 50% of the world's carbon emissions, U.S. and China. So that's why they have to get it right, work together, because if they don't get it right, the other 198 countries that the other 50%.
It's leadership.
It's the leadership and figuring it out.
Yeah.
That's why these dialogues, whether it's the APEC meeting like we had here in Hawaii
Yeah.
and elsewhere, or the meeting that Xi Jinping and President Obama just had, those meetings are important. Keep talking, keep working, agree to disagree, but keep going to the table, because that's how progress is made.
We must do that. Our leadership must do that. They must be akamai enough to do that, and must be capable of doing it with sophisticated discussion negotiation techniques. Talk about ferrous metals. We have 2 minutes.
Okay, non-ferrous metals is another area that I'm working in right now with a great organization on the East Coast that was established in 1939 called Thalheimer. And that organization is the leader in non-ferrous metals. But if you look at recycled metals, you don't have to use energy to make them. They're already made. So part of the strategy, China is one of the largest importers of recycled metals, because the energy component is very, very small. You save, I think, on aluminum, 95% energy by using recyclables.
Sure.
So,
high requirement for energy for making aluminum.
yeah, so copper, we call number 1 copper, number 2 copper, red brass, this type of product.
So what's the trick? You have to get the old metals in a single place and process them.
Yeah, this company in the U.S. does that.
Thalheimer.
Yeah, and they have been doing it since 1939. So they collect, clean, assay, so that when they say it's 100% of this, it's 100% of that.
Yeah.
And then the key is to sell it to China. So my role in that is to set up a system. There's things that you need to import, official imports of recycled. You need what's called an AQ-SIQ license.
A Chinese AQ-SIQ license.
Which I got for them. It's done. And so we can now ship.
So the acquisition or the conglomeration of the used metals is here in the United States?
Yes.
The processing is here in the United States?
Yes.
And then you do sort of spot sales to manufacturers that need these metals in China?
To mills, to foundries, to smelters. That's who their users are.
And it
so they
saves
blend
energy.
it. So they blend it.
Yeah.
They blend it, and it
This is great.
saves a lot of energy. It saves
Thalheimer
pollution.
doing that already, or are you just...
No, they are doing it, and I'm if you will, complementing what they started.
helping them?
Yeah, they're basically selling through a brokerage system in the U.S., and what we're doing is trying to get their face into the Chinese market so that they can make direct sales.
It's great. There ought to be plenty of business there.
Yeah, it takes time, got to do things step by
It's
step.
also good for the world. It's good for climate change. It's good for emissions, all that.
Yeah, no, recyclables is a good thing.
What's your next project after that, real quick?
Want to focus more on educational exchanges and also some areas in geothermal.
We are just beginning.
Yes, there's always needs.
Manny Menendez, riding the wave. After 35 years, he's just beginning.
Yes.
I love it. Manny Menendez, MCM Group. This is ThinkTech Asia. We're talking about the hero returns. Ni hao ma, xie xie, and sai jian.
Sai-Jen, thank you for having me on the show, and I love your new facilities.
Thank you, Manny.